Yeah, what a week that was. Well, to talk about that, I'm joined now here at the big table by Kornely Kakachia. I hope I got your name right. He is the director of the Georgian Institute of Politics in Tbilisi. He's one of Georgia's most respected foreign policy commentators. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Were you surprised when these crowds of people tried to storm Parliament last week?
It was kind of unexpected at the beginning, but if you look, generally, I think there was some expectation that this kind of discontent, which was growing in Georgian society internally, related to internal politics as well as external politics, that it would come up at one day. But nobody really expected that it would happen exactly this time.
You don't think anyone in Parliament, the ruling party, the leaders in Parliament, that they didn't know that allowing this Russian lawmaker to come and speak in Russian in Parliament, they didn't know that that would trigger some type of response?
I think
like
it
this?
was not really a prudent decision from the government. I think they kind of miscalculated what kind of consequences it may have. And of course, they didn't expect it, that this could trigger such a kind of outburst in the Georgian society. But I think this was major miscalculation from ruling party.
You think it was a miscalculation? Yeah. The Kremlin is saying that Georgia is in the grip of Russophobic hysteria. Is that what we saw last week?
I think I would not completely agree with this, because there's two reasons, actually. One of them, the internal, basically the ruling party become less popular. And as you know, there's a general election expected in 2020. So there was one of the reasons that society actually wants some change, especially in terms of the electoral law. And then there was, of course, external reason. So people in Georgian society actually were not really completely happy with the recent policy of the ruling party towards Russia, basically accommodating Russian kind of interest. And I think that some part of the Georgian society, they said, okay, we want to have a good relations with Russia, trade, humanitarian contact, but we don't want the Russian political influence or religious influence in this country. And this was kind of a red line where the people decided that now it's time to to tell this to the government.
And is that happening in Georgia? Is Moscow constantly trying to push the envelope and to see how far it can go with its influence in Georgia? I
think that's a major issue, because it's not only Georgia, but if you look at the Russian policy, in the neighborhood, they're using soft power as well as hard power against smaller neighbors. And basically, one of the idea with Georgia was that Russia was trying to weaken this sovereignty of the neighbors, including Georgia. And also, don't forget that we had a war with Russia, so people didn't forget this. And also, the recognition by Moscow of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, that's a still huge trauma for Georgian people.
Well, you say that you had a recent war with Russia. And so on the outside, looking at Georgia, then it's amazing that you would allow a Russian lawmaker to come into your parliament and to speak Russian. Looking at it from the outside, it seems outrageous that would even be considered. But tell me, why? Does that speak to the fact that the ruling party may be in the pocket of the Kremlin?
I think there's some, the different opinion about that, because the ruling party actually harbors also social conservative, kind of constituents of Georgia who is very I would say pro-Orthodox, and so this is they also have voters actually who vote for this kind of actually politicians. So they had to, and they actually, I'm not saying maybe very pro-Russian, but they are Russian neutral at least, and that was one of the reasons actually. They thought that to bring this kind of like assembly of these Orthodox countries that would somehow improve maybe relations with Russia, but they miscalculated that. I think that was too much when Georgian people actually saw the Russian MP basically speaking in Russian and sitting in the chair of the Georgian Speaker of Parliament, and actually he's not supposed to be there actually according to the agenda, and that was the major trigger there.
Right. It was against protocol as well.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. A fascinating story, and we appreciate you coming in tonight and explaining it to us. I'm Kornely Kakachia, director of the Georgian Institute of Politics in Tbilisi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.